Hey, it's Joey Only here, Caribou Weather Dude. Yes, to talk about increasing risk of fire behavior up in the Peace region, northeast part of BC, up near Fort Nelson, areas like that, through Alberta North. The drought is still on up there. Conditions are largely down for fire behavior in most of British Columbia, but not so in the coming days for the Peace region. Let's have a look at that. Let's go!
This is bad news.
My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen.
Wow. I'll watch the video later.
Feel the heat.
I need more knives. I need water. They ain't dry mopping this.
Well, this more or less tells the picture right now. Forest severity anomaly, well above average up there. That's almost exactly where Fort Nelson is. So we've had periods of cooler weather, wet weather, sometimes snow in the high elevations, and that included places like Fort Nelson. I know some of the firefighter friends I have up there. I have not been deployed up there, but people from my company and allies who I care about very much are up there right now. Like my friend Jordan, he says to me that they woke up to some very cold weather last week. I don't know, was it Thursday or something like that? Maybe it was -7. Some people were saying snow on the ground. So very difficult situation for firefighters who have to live out of tents in a lot of cases, right? So that's the other thing is you think like, why can't we just throw everybody up there and get on it? But where are these people going to sleep and stay? And so a camp's been built, and then people are putting themselves in some risk. So here's a change for buildup index through Ottawa Valley, Quebec side, and into northern side of Ontario. If you go like north of Sudbury and go up to the Timmins area, whatever, so you're getting up to there. It looks like there's a bit of a change. So that's a first. And if you go over to New Brunswick, bit of a change there. Holding pattern on the far north, although if you look Alberta, it's cooled off a little bit. So that Fort McMurray fire was kicking up a lot of smoke and made people evacuate. Some of those evacuation orders, I believe, have been, if not all, rescinded for the fort. So that's good news for them up there. So it looks like maybe a little bit of improvement, actually really across the north here. Still, though, pretty dry. And if you figure we have a couple days of dry weather, you can imagine some of these fires that are just smoldering around up there. They're still alive. They're not dead. They've not been defeated. They've been knocked down by the weather. And in a lot of cases, some of those fires are pretty remote, and they're going to be left to burn. However, not the one in Fort Nelson, obviously. And our drought code, it still reflects so that maybe the buildup index doesn't reflect how dry things have been up north because we've had that down weather. But the drought code kind of reflects that, right? So we get kind of an idea that things are still very droughty in Western Canada, quite droughty. So when we look at hot spots, really just that top corner of BC up here in Fort Nelson. So you see the fire, initially blew up pretty close to town, started pushing towards town very fast. The winds were driving it. They managed to stop it however, and it hasn't moved any further towards town, right? So, this is the good news. The guy up north, it's obviously grown closer. It's quite close to the airport now, those edges. So we expect that by Wednesday, when the weather gets warm, we're going to see some of these areas start to wake up and start to throw some smoke, right? So smoke advisories are in effect up there. And you see some of the other fires, they've not been very active. Got a few spots that in the last few days have thrown a little bit of heat, but all in all, there's a fairly positive looking. So the white sort of denotes further back into the time frame, and the orange would denote closer. Red would denote like yesterday or whatever, right? So as you can see, Fort McMurray fire hasn't really come any closer. It's really burnt up that south side of the Athabasca River, and it hasn't come any closer as it had shown a lot of activity in the last number of days. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Fort McMurray is safe. There's going to be a lot of work that has to be done here to button up these edges and contain this bastard, but this is positive news. So as you see, the jet stream here is sort of to the south of us, bringing cooler weather to most of Western Canada. That's been going on. But you can see it's going to get drier up north by the weekend, especially. We're coming into a dry period, and then here, boom, there's a ridge. There's a ridge. So by the end of the month, we're looking at coming back into warmer weather. So here we are on Monday. We're just going to have a look. We're going to see a storm start to boil up here. I guess you call that a Colorado low. That's going to work its way towards Ontario. So it's going to bring some pretty nasty weather to Ontario this week. It's started to dry on Monday for BC. But Tuesday, we see some of that precipitation come back in. There's our storm heading up right up into Ontario. There's our Colorado low. Boom, real big looking for Wednesday. Definitely Wednesday, still precipitous in southern British Columbia. We'll look at what's thunderstorms and what's just straight rain here in a few minutes. But there, a big storm coming through. We're mostly North Ontario, going to hit Lake Superior. So imagine if you are having plans to go boating on Lake Superior on Wednesday, I would suggest you don't do that. That would probably be pretty aggressive there. So that's our big story. Another secondary low kind of forming. So maybe we'll see what that does for weather in Alberta coming into the weekend. Not Alberta, sorry, into Manitoba. I'm saying east when I say west. I'm saying Manitoba when I say Alberta. I'm like, I got dyslexia today. And it's still some precipitation in southern British Columbia Friday. So we're definitely not in a great trend for warmer weather for the southern part of British Columbia. But that is not the case for Fort Nelson area where it's going to be pretty warm. We're going to see some 20s. In fact, it's going to be warmer up there than it is for a lot of us down here. So just having a look at today, it's Monday. This is the first GFA of the day. You can see I got a bit of an occluded front coming in. It's not quite hot. It's not quite cold. You got a bit of a warm front in front of a cold front with a warm front dragging behind it. It's not really, it doesn't know what it's going to do. So that line's going all the way up into the Yukon. And for the rest of us here, we got scattered clouds. Now it's coming into province later in the afternoon. All right, so we see risk of thunderstorm down southeastern BC. Southeastern BC, occasional towering cumulus there, it says. There's a weakening this line as it goes up through the north, but we've got a bit of a low pressure system sitting right up there by Fort Nelson at the time. So the occluded front is going on, dragging in some precipitation behind. That's going to see us on Tuesday for the most part, right? And there we go. So not crazy amounts of thunderstorm predictions today, but could we see some picking up, and we do have that little risk of rain as we go into the evening overnight for much of British Columbia. So that's the positive news to start. And you can see when you look into the Pacific Ocean, it's not exactly lovely out there. It's still, full of cloud out there. Full of cloud. We got storms out here. Right, you got some low pressure up here. So it's not exactly just giving up. I mean, look at most of British Columbia this morning. There you go. So is it the 20th today? It's the 20th. Wow. So it's been exactly a month since my fire season started there out at Burgess Creek. So that is nice. 18 days I've had so far this year, and it's only May 20th. So that's a change because last year would have been, what now? It would have been 10 days in, 12 days into my tour. Now this big high pressure ball just sitting off the coast of the United States there, it's the one that keeps things generally nice on the US West Coast, and it's definitely what's keeping it from being nice here. So you can see where basically that give you kind of an idea of where that jet stream would sort of the north end of it would be and where it's going to start dipping down, right? And we got low pressure up here as well. Sort of sticking around, so a little bit of Gulf of Alaska. So this Gulf of Alaska pattern we've been seeing, I mean, this weather the last week, and at times already this spring, it's really reminded me of that, right? It's reminded me of those 2019, 2020 seasons we had where things weren't really bad, like fire weather wasn't crazy, didn't have that many fires, blah, 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 right? So that's the La Nina weather pattern we're expecting this year. We're expecting, what would look a lot like we've been seeing lately. We have the low sitting in the Gulf of Alaska and sort of feeding straight into BC. So give us more precipitation, more thunderstorms possibly, but more high precipitation thunderstorms associated with that, right? So that's looking at where things are this morning. And you can see it is warmer up north than it is expected to be down south. So 12 degrees up there in places. It is Northwest Territories, 12s, 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 11s. But you go look down in Caribbean right now, only 9 degrees to start the day. So that's not great for them or anybody who's concerned about them. So you look at 17 degrees. So there's going to be warmer up there already today. We're seeing a warming trend that'll start beginning for the north, minus the fact that we got a little bit of weather off and on this week that's going to interrupt, but we'll talk about that as we go. So we'll have a focus mostly on to the north, and you can see the temperature on Tuesday. So it's sort of that repeat of last week, it'll feel like for everybody up there fighting that fire. But we go look at Wednesday, and a big change is going to start working on Wednesday. By 1400 hours, we're already at 17 or so in that general area. We go just a little bit further ahead. So not the warmest yet, because the warmest day should be Thursday, I think. 22 degrees more or less looking at Thursday. So that is going to be an increase in fire weather for sure. The low pressure is going to bring winds around from different directions and have been pushing the fire. So maybe it'll push the fires in some cases to grow in directions they've not really grown yet. So the flanks become the head. And Friday again, the weather a little bit down as this low pressure comes. It's going to bring some cooler weather in from the north and from the ocean. But that's short-lived. It's short-lived because we go through the weekend. Moved well into Alberta by now. So a little bit of disagreement, I guess, with ECMWF and the GFS I saw this morning. 17 degrees. And, these are in some cases warmer than the temperatures that we saw when fires began up there. Whatever day it was now, when the Fort Nelson fire kicked off, week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know. The weather was not this warm. Okay, looking at Tuesday. So here's what we're kind of watching for as we come to the end of the month. Looking for that ridge to come in, and we're hoping it's going to start bringing us some warmer weather, having these steady 21s, things like that up there, 23s. Alberta looking like it's going to see some real warmth by that time. So our eyes are kind of on the end of June. Or in the end of June, we'll have a better idea of what's going to be going on by then. So let's come back around, look at thunderstorms, what they're going to be. So the southern BC may be seeing a bit of a risk of that today. But as we go into the week, not a whole lot of lightning expected in the forecast. Of course, that changes frequently. Maybe a few flashes on Wednesday. Thursday, what do we got? So Friday, possible strong thunderstorm outbreak in Alberta. That's looking ahead. Could be, we've had sort of popcorns come and go this week. We haven't had any really aggressive thunderstorms. Some of these look a little more promising. Day by day, we'll have a better idea of what this means as we go. I'm concerned about this. If this were to happen next week, Monday, thunderstorms up in Northwest Territories and Yukon, not good. I mean, it's so dry up there. And so we'll be watching that as we come to the end of the month, watching those thunderstorms in the north. And you still have snow on Monday happening in parts of the mountains, right? Mix of weather, freezing weather, things like this. So it's not, it's not been great weather for fire behavior, and it's not really going to be for much of the province yet. We're inching towards it. We're having our eye on that possible forecast in to the end of May, beginning of June. So we're having our eye on maybe a change of it warming up. So yeah, Tuesday looking again sort of a return to miserable shitty weather in BC. Widespread rains, and this is positive. People need the rains, and you can see the temperatures will be cooler. Got without even looking at the temperature, we ordered the temperature, but even without clicking on it again, you can tell we got snow and we got mix of rain. We got large probability of rain into the Caribou, Central Interior, North Thompson. So I look forward to some more rain on Tuesday for everybody. That is the deal. But Wednesday, you see the high pressure in the north starts to wake up. The convection of the afternoon makes little cumulus clouds bubble. Some of them kind of get together, maybe continue to grow until they get a towering cumulus, and then maybe one of them becomes a thunderstorm and throws out 3 or 4 bolts of lightning, and then begins its process of dying out. The storm grows too tall and begins to cool off and sink, and therefore loses its ability to storm. So we're watching for a lot of BC. Thursday, maybe a day that we're going to watch for after thunderstorms, right? For a lot of BC, this sort of trend continues, but up in the north, we're kind of watching that sort of warm up there. There's some disagreements on what kind of warm up we're going to see, but like I say, for the southern BC, we're still looking pretty good right now, right? We're still looking pretty good. Things are not all continue. Considering the fact that we do have there you go, Saturday the 25th. Risk of thunderstorms, Prince George. So that's, follow me on Interior Weather Wilderness Watchers on Facebook, because we will every day talking about what's going on out there. But, all in all, cooler down weather, despite the fact there's still drought conditions in BC. And certainly what concerns me for fire situation in Fort Nelson is we are looking at that low humidity again at times, right? So you are going to see real battle between humidex values as you look over to the coastal side of BC, 100%, right? So you got that, shitty weather is on one side. You got this sort of dry weather trying to manifest itself. So the 23% humidity, that's obviously, if you're looking at 20 degrees weather, we're really close to that crossover. We are checking out our winds and what's going on up there for winds in Fort Nelson, say on Thursday afternoon. So that warmer weather, what we are concerned about is a chance of wind. So obviously at nighttime, stronger winds could be coming through. These are wind gusts that I'm showing here. So they're not representative of steady winds, no. But if some of these moments of gusts Friday afternoon could be 18 degrees, so low humidity, and we got some possibly strong winds pushing in directions the fire hasn't been going necessarily. So that's possibly good news. We'll see. We'll see come the time. Um, Saturday, some straight northerlies down. We got that fire sort of north of town, so I'm concerned about that still. I'm more concerned about the fire north of town now than I am really about the one that's been going on. I mean, obviously the Parker Lake fire, 10 destroyed, something like that, right? There's been some property damage. It's not been good. It could have been a lot worse. But as we look at, so here's the Snake River, and then here's the Fort Nelson River, and he's got that one fire. It's kind of like basically kind of holding on to the two of these. And if you get these strong northerlies, and that fire, because of the length, it's long now, it's big. So what it's done is it's really created a large net that it could run and work its way south off of, right? So the Parker Lake fire, I mean, by now it seems to be cut off. It seems to be dead. And the good news about that fire is it's sort of like it was a long kind of fire. It's had a narrow head, so they're able to stop that. And all it can really do is grow off the flanks now. I'm sure that they're working hard on that, right? So the bigger concern, I think, now for Fort Nelson isn't so much the Parker Lake fire, but the fact that we got this really large one that's in some cases only 10 kilometers from like the airport or less, right? That has that potential to really grow south still, especially if we get lots of these northerly winds. So those are things we're going to be looking forward to this week as a sort of a warming trend up north. Looking towards the end of the month, that ridge should bring us some warmer weather in general for the rest of the province. We got scattered thunderstorms, isolated thunderstorms, but mostly down weather for BC interior this week. Warming up in the Peace region. Some of these winds are concerning. Some of these humid values are concerning. So we're looking for some possible fire growth and fire behavior for all these fires up here this week, right? That is more or less what I'm looking at and concerned about. As we look at our drought intensity, right? It's been some improvement for Fort Nelson. It's only at moderate right now. So, I mean, it won't take very long for that to change if it doesn't take a whole lot more rain. So, I mean, these are good to see these improvements. But if we go look ahead, say to Thursday, what's going to happen? So, the rest of BC is responding pretty nicely. It's taking quite a bit of rain. So, hey, this isn't terrible. I thought maybe we'd see a little bit more of a drying trend up there. So that's at least drought intensity expectations for right now. When you look at fire spread index, as of yesterday, we'll jump ahead to Monday. Not looking great for most of the province. Fort St. John region, you maybe be the best off. We go further to the 21st. It's looking drier and drier for the Yellowknife area, looking worse and worse for them. Fort St. John still, and we see those conditions now start to make a change for Fort Nelson. We're going to see some growth in these fire danger ratings up there, looking really bad now by the end of the week for the Northwest Territories, right? So we're concerned about them, and I am concerned about them in general, because even if I think that we will take on, if I believe the La Nina is coming this year. I've been telling people that, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it comes equally for everybody. So my real concern is the boreal forest. I don't know what's going on. I mean, to me, it feels like that with the climate change happening, that we have essentially the wrong forest type now too far south, in a sense, right? So it's like the climate has changed, and this forest type that's sitting in this region is no longer suited for this region. It's suited for a region more down here, more or less, right? And so this forest types need to show up. What will happen with climate change is we will see the tree line move north. That's the reality, right? So day by day for fuel moisture, much of BC looking pretty good though, right? Much of BC looking pretty good. It's just that really that top corner still in the Peace, that is the concern. You know, and things could dry out a little bit as we get to the end of the month. While we're here, let's have a look at rainfall accumulation the next 3 days. So nothing crazy going on. Maybe in some of the high country, see 30 millimeters the next 5 days. I don't know about that. 52 millimeters seems a little bit crazy, right? So, but you know that some of those systems we saw moving through on Tuesday look pretty handy, right? And the same later this week. So we got repeat rounds of rain. I don't know if 68 millimeters in the high country there is really possible, but if you outside clear water, maybe you'll see that much. However, if you're in other parts of BC, maybe you'll only see 23 millimeters, right? So it's going to be kind of dependent on where you are and how much you get. But it looks like everyone gets a little bit. Everyone gets a little bit, and that even includes Fort Nelson. So everyone gets a little bit of rain before some of that potentially warmer weather at the end of the month begins to show its face. Anyways, I hope that helped describe to you some of the situation as I see it, things that we're looking at this next week, some of the weather stories to come, right? So what did I say? Okay, what did I say? I said, well, off and on risk of non-severe thunderstorms in BC this week. Sure, that's quite likely. Some rainfall for sure. Drying conditions in the Peace Country. And possibly a drying trend by the end of the month. Remains to be seen exactly how much. We'll have more for you on all those stories when we can. Please support my Patreon. I'm really broke right now. Even though I've had some fire days, I've not received my paychecks yet, so I'm actually in overdraft. I'm quite destitute. Any help helps. Thank you very much. Do subscribe, share, hit like, tell a friend. Please keep coming back again and again. Thank you very much, everybody. See you next time. Bye now.